passion. Like I'm not a cannabis user. I mean, I am marginally, but I really was not informed. And it was my husband, if you saw at the end, the film is dedicated to my beloved husband who passed away last year to mental illness. And this was his passion. He struggled his whole life with lots of different physical chronic pain, learning issues, processing issues, and yet he was the most brilliant guy I'd ever met. But he, on his own path of trying healing remedies for himself, his grandfather was also dying of bone cancer at the time, and he and I stumbled across a little girl, a sick little girl, through Twitter of all things. I was doing Dancing with the Stars and met this little girl through social media, and we moved this child and her mother into our home for 6 weeks in Los Angeles. She lived in an illegal state, and we went on this journey to try to find other healing modalities other than chemo for her. And I told Abby, who is my partner from the Business of Being Born, and she said, I think this is our next film. And I was like, you think? And literally, we started with this little girl who didn't end up in the film, but this has been a 5 or 6 year process in making this movie. And my husband didn't get to see the end product, but this is his legacy. I do believe this is such an important piece for taking away the stigma of this medicine. You can't argue, this is not recreational, this is not about getting high, this is about medicine that it can help alleviate all the symptoms with cancer, and in some cases eradicate the disease. So I believe that everyone should have access to this medicine, and I will do everything in my power to get this movie to the world.
Thanks. Mariah, can you tell us a little bit about your story and your relationship with Kim and how that came about, and what you guys are doing in Florida and elsewhere in the country for medical cannabis?
Sure. My name is Mariah Barnhart. My daughter Dahlia was diagnosed with an aggressive form of brain cancer at the age of 2, which is how I met Tracy, and we've gone on very similar journeys, although our daughters started with very different diagnoses. She was starting Canna Kids on the West Coast as a way to get medicine to sick kids with investors and going around the world with the science. And I was doing stuff that maybe wasn't so legal and starting a nonprofit called Canna Moms on the East Coast that eventually would get very legitimate federal 501c3 approval to relocate children to legal states and help subsidize the cost of medicine. As you saw in this film, you have some very particular hardships that you come across when you're the parent of a sick child, trying to get them anything that's not covered by insurance, and that DCF could take your child from your home and they would lose their only caregiver. It's a lot different when you're trying to treat your own ailment or that of somebody you love who's an adult. We have so many obstacles to overcome as parents in this situation. The state will take custody of your child if you forego conventional treatment. They will also take custody of your child if they consider you're doing something illegal in their eyes that harms the child. We've come so far in the last 5 years since our children were first diagnosed. For one, we moved back to Florida and got the laws changed there. We partnered with Kim here to create the first USDA certified organic, which, because this is a federally illegal plant, that's a huge deal. Hemp product, CBD product, going into full cannabis lines here in Tennessee. My daughter's a St. Jude patient. She's on her 3rd experimental trial. So it was really important to me personally. The families that I work with most have access to this plant. So Kim, creating companies left and right, also first publicly traded companies. So again, how federal stuff is really changing. Times are moving forward. Over the last few years, we've seen immense progress, even though it feels like baby steps when you need this medicine for somebody who's suffering or in a hospital bed, possibly dying today. We had to use it illegally in Tennessee the first time that we used cannabis here in the state of Tennessee, and I cannot tell you to this day the amount of PTSD that you endure when you're watching your child dying and being resuscitated, and there's absolutely, you're backed into a corner, this is your absolute last hope, and you're doing something that you know at any second. Not only are you so scared that your child's going to stop breathing that you're watching them, but you're also watching out the window for SWAT teams. Like literally, it's that scary. And obviously the trauma just makes it that much worse. But watching my daughter go from the situation she was in to overnight regaining her childhood, because at some point you stop worrying about whether or not you're going to save their life, and you start worrying about if their life is going to be worth living. So that quality of life, even if the only thing this plant ever did is make that child feel like a child again and make that child happy to wake up in the morning, then it's worth it. So for us coming to the state of Tennessee and trying to get this changed for these children that are coming around the world to come to the leading research hospital should have access in this state, in every state. Obviously, we're going after federal here, right? This is a federal issue. We do need research. But that's not enough to say that we shouldn't have access today, because there is no research on the medicine these kids are getting. You have Dravet and epileptic children receiving drugs that are made for animals. You have chemotherapies that are extremely dangerous, are known to cause brain damage, nerve damage, death. That's what's being given to these children. So we are not scared of the fact that there is not quote-unquote research according to the FDA, but we push for it. And in pushing for that, I think it's important that I introduce you here to my friend Kim, who's making those things happen for us.
Thank you. Well, Mariah hit it on the head. We don't want this to be the last hope. We don't want this to be the last option. We want this to be a first option. And we can't do that alone. This industry, I'm standing here because this industry was built on the back of patients. I'm not here for any other reason. My company is here to absolutely support this medicine. The science behind it has never been more real. This is a real option, and we want it to take front line, and we want to get the word out and support such a mission that Ricky has put together, so meaningful. And we're happy that you found value in supporting everything that we're doing for patients and for Dahlia and for anybody else sitting out there. This medicine is real. It works. We want it to be frontline. We want to help support the state of Tennessee in any way we can. I'm not really big on the rules and laws. That's just not what I do. But for that, I will pass the mic. But
She didn't say that.
I mean, well, you know, that's just that. We have lawyers for that, and we have educators, and we have people like Cecily and like Ricky and like Mariah that are out there every day. This is real. These patients are real. The medicine is real. The hope is real, and we're never going to give that up. So thank you, Ricky, for doing this for us and for everybody else. It's very meaningful. We need it, and thank you for finding value in that.
One of the hardest parts of advocacy in a prohibition state is we deal with a lot of patients that are suffering under conventional protocols for treatment for a variety of different illnesses. And my story began when in 2013 I have PTSD and another condition that causes chronic pain and nausea, and I had done some activism in the past, and I decided to go to one of the lobby days on the Hill at the Tennessee legislature. And the first time I lobbied on the Hill, I lobbied with a woman by the name of Gail Grauer, whose granddaughter had Dravet syndrome, Chloe Grauer. And that year we had a bill for CBD-only hemp-derived oils, and we had a medical cannabis bill before the legislature, neither of which passed. And in between that first and second legislative session, Chloe died. And it's hard not to talk about this and get upset, because we see this every day. And Chloe should not have died. And if Chloe was in a state in like Colorado or California, we know that she would still be alive. And we see as patient advocates every day, we see cannabis giving people their lives back and saving people's lives in legal states. And that's absolutely our mission here, and it's an absolutely critical mission for us to save lives in Tennessee and make a difference here, because what we're seeing is prohibition is doing a lot more damage to people's lives than cannabis is. And it is our natural right to have cannabis. It is a human right, and we should all have access to it. We should be using this everywhere, and we won't stop until everyone has access to this plan.
I saw after the viewing last night, I left really nervous. In Florida, we found that it was the lack of education that was holding up our laws, and it took a lot of years to change that. And in Tennessee, last night at the viewing, there were a lot of people in the audience who are residents here who didn't know that, say, the hemp oil you can order online is actually growing here in Tennessee very legally under the hemp pilot program for this state. You have beautiful medicine in literally your backyards. It's not hard to obtain here at all. You just want to make sure that you have test results with the medicine. Other than that, you should know that writing your senators and representatives is really important because we're right on the verge of legalizing medical cannabis here. And if your senators and your representatives, like governors are great, but in reality laws are passed because you're going to your senators and representatives and letting them know that your eyes are on them and that they will not be reelected if they don't do what the will of the people is asking them to do. So it's just really important to know that you're so close to reaching that milestone. You do have hemp here, which a lot of these children also need THC. So we've made it this far, and let's just keep pushing because we're almost there. Don't let the momentum die.
Really quick on the legislative effort in Tennessee. We've got a critical election coming up, gubernatorial election, and one of our fiercest opponents is running for governor in Tennessee, Diane Black. She and her husband spend money every year to kill the medical cannabis bill in Tennessee. He is one of the founders of one of the largest drug testing companies in the country. And so they have a vested financial interest to make sure that medical cannabis doesn't happen in Tennessee. So if you are a Republican, you need to go out and vote in the Republican primary in August, and do not vote for Diane Black. There is there is a pro medical cannabis candidate on the Republican side, Beth Harwell, and I would say most, if not all, on the Democratic side are pro cannabis law reform. So we just need to make sure that she doesn't make it past the Republican primary, because if she does, we will probably not see medical cannabis in the state of Tennessee for at least 4 years. So it's very critical that you go out and vote for pro-cannabis candidates. It's very critical that you invest and donate to those candidates as well, because they can't make it across the finish line without that kind of help. So, do we have any questions from anybody in the audience?
Man, you should host a talk show.
I did have a show on Radio Free Nashville covering national politics, so I'm a little familiar with this format.
Status in Indiana.
Indiana's a pretty conservative state. I think that they're probably going to be one of the last on the list. Obviously Mike Pence is from there. I mean, he was the governor there. So I think Indiana's going to be one of the last ones, most likely.
We're bringing the film to Oklahoma next month, because so we're going to be showing the film at their Dead Center Film Festival 2 weeks before the referendum. So we're really hoping that the film will have that impact to push it over the edge.
And we're going to continue to work with Ricky and Abby. We would really like to present this to the medical community here in Tennessee and put together some conferences for medical cannabis to kind of move the needle forward in the medical community here. So we're going to hit this on all fronts. So any other questions? Yes.
I just want to say I've got a 13-year-old who uses CBD. We obviously buy it from elsewhere. And we're able to acquire it, but of course it's very expensive, and our insurance, no insurance will cover that here.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the updates on the legislative efforts, and am inspired to be supportive, knowing some of the specifics from you all, and just thanks for sharing that.
And a free plug to Kim, she's actually building out a retail facility in Antioch to supply medicine for people in the state of Tennessee. So they're going to be expanding efforts here. And a really quick note on CBD. We had raids in Rutherford County recently over CBD products. Obviously, they lost very badly on that issue because CBD is legal in the state of Tennessee. The prosecutor and the sheriff that orchestrated those raids are part of Diane Black's Law and Order Coalition, in quotes, Law and Order Coalition. So there was an agenda there, but one of the things that they did find, which we actually really do need to keep an eye out for as far as CBD and medicine is they found a lot of products from China that contain things that shouldn't have been in there, like diphenhydramine and melatonin and other substances that were, some of the products they found didn't even have CBD in them at all. So, you know, if you're using CBD for medicine, it's absolutely critical that you get a reputable source and that it's lab tested. I always say buy organic. I mean, just for about anything. I think that if you're going to use it for medicine, you need it to be as clean and as well processed as possible, and coming from somebody that knows what they're doing. Kim's been doing this at a very large scale in a very responsible and mindful way in terms of her products. So I'm plugging Kim again. But I think that there are a lot of good players and a lot of bad players in the cannabis industry and the hemp space. Some people are there to just make money, and there are people that are here because they care about patients. And you know, you need to go. Those are the sources that you need to go to.
And if you have a sick child, reach out online. The worst thing in the world to me was how alone I felt laying in that hospital bed. So if you need community and support, if you think you don't, you probably do. But if you know that you need community and support, reach out. There's tons of us, and we're here.
And we're part of the release of this film is we're raising money to do with an impact campaign where we actually have like a hub for people to go to online, because we know you're like the fourth audience to see this film. We're going to be inundated with people that have family members who are sick with cancer. So we want to have the access to the information in their states, to know the laws, to know where they can find this medicine, all of it. So that's part of the plan.
One more question in the back.
I was going to say thank you so much for putting this together. What an amazing film. It was enlightening. But my question actually is about that, putting a hub together. I was aware of the film because Tracy and I are part of a Little Mamas group together, and I happened to be visiting Nashville from Massachusetts. So I'm lucky enough to kind of get the inside track. There seems to be, especially in the older generation, but definitely all around, a lot of lack of education, perhaps ignorance, a little brainwashing, I'm sure. How do we get this info out there to those people to show them, open your mind a little bit, and help me?
Yeah, I mean, this film, we're hopefully going to have a big theatrical release in October. We will be on Netflix. That will be next year, 2019. So we're going to do a theatrical release, because part of the problem is when you're on Netflix, they don't really put any money in marketing or PR. Like for me to get on Good Morning America, get on those shows, we need to have sort of a real theatrical kind of launch. So we're raising money for that. And we have high hopes that this is going to impact change, not unlike our other film, The Business of Being Born. I mean, that film came out 10 years ago. Victoria knows very well about it. But that was a very small movie that we put out, not really thinking it would have much of an impact. It was very personal about me and my interest. And 10 years later, the home birth rate has literally doubled in the country because of the film. The C-section rate has flatlined for the first time in decades, because of this film. So, these movies do matter. They do. It has a trickle-down effect. So the idea is start talking to your friends. You can sign up to our website and join our community, wethepeoplemovie.com, and start talking about it. You can do grassroots screenings in your hometown starting in October. And we're going to hopefully build this momentum to change legislation and make it available to everybody.
All right, and then let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much for this. Thank you for being here. And I did want to remind everyone, We the People is eligible.